Meet my ex-boyfriend again at the anti-pornography scene. I was squatting on the roadside to buy sausages. And the police in the bath center next door were cracking down on prostitution. And they also arrested me. When I arrived at the police station, I happened to meet my police ex-boyfriend. My ex-boyfriend asked, "Are you going there to consume or be consumed?" My ex-boyfriend was stunned for a moment. And said with a smile, "I haven't seen you for a few years. You are having fun now." I am a dead house comics author. As usual. After I finished the draft, I went to the night snack stall near my home to buy a sausage. At 11 o'clock in the evening, there were no people on the street except the sausage stall owner. When I squatted on the roadside waiting for my sausage, a group of men and women suddenly rushed out of the bath center behind me. Several plainclothes policemen were shouting at them, "Don't play tricks. Squat down with your heads in your hands." Several women wearing short skirts, suspenders and heavy makeup squatted next to me with tears in their eyes. I looked at the scene with a confused face. Is this a scene of anti-pornography? So exciting. The policeman started to lead people to the car. I was squatting there watching the excitement when a policeman glanced at me and pointed at me seriously and said, "The one wearing bare pajamas. Didn't you hear me? Get in the car and follow us." Me? Huh? Are you talking about me? Looking around, I was the only one wearing bare pajamas at the scene. The group of women just squatted next to me. Wouldn't the policeman mistake me for one of them? I opened my mouth and wanted to defend myself. "Comrade policeman, I am not in the same group as them." The policeman interrupted me. "Are you trying to say that you just happened to be here? You didn't know? And you just did this for the first time?" I nodded and shook my head blankly. The policeman looked at me with a condemning look on his face. "Don't quibble. I've seen a lot of people like you. If you have anything to say, just go to the police station and talk. Take me away." He waved his hand. And I was pushed and dragged into the police car with everyone else. I was still confused when I sat in the police car. What's this? The police car drove away with a hum. Through the car window, I saw the sausage owner holding two freshly grilled sausages in his hand, standing there at a loss. My sausages. Too. When we arrived at the police station, we sat in the hall and were questioned one by one. The noise of the men and women around me was giving me a headache. I took the opportunity to wave to the policeman. "Comrade, I'm really not in the same group with them. Look at me dressed like this. I just went downstairs to buy a midnight snack. And I was brought here by chance." The policeman stared at my bare pajamas and my face with dark circles under my eyes, and fell into deep thought. He seemed to think that what I said made sense. Me, it's not normal to dress up when going downstairs to buy sausages at night. I am willing to wash my face and go out, which is already very worthy of the city appearance. Unless I run into my ex-boyfriend when I go downstairs to throw away the garbage. But who can be so unlucky? This thought just appeared for a second, and I was slapped in the face. A cold male voice without any emotion appeared in front of me. "Sacked." "What's wrong?" I was shocked when I heard this very familiar voice. The policeman named Ack turned his head and said, "Oh, Captain Liang. These are the people brought from the Golden Years anti-pornography operation. They are being interrogated." The man hummed softly and his footsteps got closer and closer. I lowered my head tightly, wishing I could bury it in the ground. I prayed that the other party would leave quickly. Who knew that by chance? The pair of leather shoes stopped right in front of me. "Look up." The man's voice was emotional. I bit my lip and slowly raised my head. I met the man's lowered eyes. He was very tall, about 1.89 meters tall. When he looked down at people, there was a sense of oppression from a high position. He had cold eyebrows and a serious face. He looked like a flower from the high mountain. But only I know that when such a high-class beauty kisses, her eyes will be closed devoutly. Her long eyelashes will tremble slightly, and her white jade earlobes will be red like dripping blood. I suppressed my body trembling, tried to look at him calmly, and said with a heartless smile, "Hey, what a coincidence. Max, you work here." Zach next to me was a little shocked. Captain Liang. You know each other? Max stared at me for a while, then nodded lightly. Yes. I know each other. Let me interrogate her. Max pointed at me. Zero. In the single interrogation room, Max sat opposite me with an expressionless face. Nina. Age. 24. ID number? I looked at his indifferent attitude and felt a little irritated. Don't you know it? Max paused with his pen tip and wrote a string of ID numbers on it fluently. Is it to consume or to be consumed? He raised his eyes and asked me. Consumption. I remembered that I paid. Why is 3 yuan not considered consumption? Max was obviously stunned for a second, and his expression seemed to be a little cracked. He also pulled up a mocking smile at the corner of his mouth. I haven't seen you for a few years. And you have been having fun. Tell me, which male technician did you order? When he asked this question, it seemed that he had a feeling. I realized that he had misunderstood. I don't know if it was an illusion, but after he finished speaking, Max's brows were obviously relaxed. At this time, Zach also pushed open the door of the interrogation room and came in. Captain Jing. The surveillance at the entrance of Golden Years has been called up. The surveillance proved that I was indeed just an innocent little girl squatting on the roadside waiting for grilled sausages. And I was caught by chance. I was vindicated. And Zach apologized to me. Embarrassed lie. Sorry. This brain misunderstood you. I was about to nod. And then I realized what he called me. Wait? Sister-in-law? What sister-in-law? Zach also looked at me with a confused look. And then looked at Max beside me. Is it the one you have been talking about? I saw you two were so familiar with each other. I thought. Zach glanced at him. And Zach was silent and touched his nose. When I heard this, I felt a sour feeling in my heart. Object. It turns out that Max already has a new girlfriend. Yes, we have been separated for 4 years. It is normal to have a new girlfriend. The sour feeling in my heart became heavier and heavier. And I couldn't breathe. I lowered my head and walked out of the police station in a trance. Not noticing the footsteps, I turned around and found Max following me. Do you have anything else? I asked. Max's face was indifferent, and he raised his chin to indicate the car next to him and said, I just got off work. It's too late and unsafe. I'll take you home. Unknowingly, it was almost 1 o'clock in the morning. I looked at him with a calm face as if he didn't think there was anything wrong with what he said. I was angry. He already has a girlfriend, but he still offers to send his ex-girlfriend home. Don't you think he has no boundaries? No. I refused bluntly. I'll take it, Axie. As I said that, I took out my phone and tried to call a taxi. After 1 minute, 2 minutes, no one took the order. This police station is 15 kilometers away from my home. It's so late at night. The bus and the subway are not very convenient. If I walk back like this, I will be exhausted. Max just stood quietly in a corner. He took me to the back seat. I turned my head, turned around, and sat in the back seat very hard. The car was driving slowly, and the atmosphere was a little awkward. Sitting in the back seat, I could just see Max's uniform sleeves rolled up to expose his wrists, and his calm eyebrows in the rearview mirror. I was a little fascinated for a while. I met Max 10 years ago. He was in the first year of high school and I was 15 years old. Max was much more immature when he was a teenager than he is now. But his high-class manner was very good. He sat in the window seat diagonally in front of me, and I saw him every time I turned around. I admit that I fell in love with Max at first purely because of his beauty. Maybe it was because I studied art, and Max was in line with my aesthetic point. Whether it was his or her aesthetics, I was attracted by Max. When we chatted in class, I was like Max. I drew more than a dozen pictures without realizing it. In the next class, the head teacher directly pointed at me and snorted at me. Then she stood on the podium and mocked me with a hint of meaning. Some girls are not thinking about it at all. They just look at me every day. They have no sense of shame. Don't drag the boys with good grades into the water. My grades are a little worse. But they are also in the middle position. They are not as bad as she said. And I have always liked Max silently. I have never disturbed him, let alone seduced him. The classmates in the class looked at me strangely. The class just saw it and knew at a glance that it was Max. My little bit of hidden girlish feelings were exposed in front of everyone without any defense. I bit my lower lip. My face turned pale little by little. And my whole body was cold. Teacher, start the class. Max's voice suddenly rang out. The head teacher saw him, and his face immediately eased. Although this matter was over, I was in an awkward situation. Sometimes, what a teacher said represented authority, and the trend in the class. The teacher said this to me. And some classmates followed and laughed at me privately. I was a child from a single-parent family whose mother didn't care about me and whose grades were average. I actually had the good intention to imagine that Max, who was in the top 3 in the grade and had excellent conditions in all aspects, was a dream. It was really wishful thinking, the target of ridicule that could not be introduced. After school, I went to check the trash can in the class, and found that the torn painting was also missing. It might have been thrown away by the duty student. For after this incident, I began to become more and more quiet and avoid opportunities. So even in the same class, we were like strangers. In the second half of the second year of high school, the original head teacher was reported for accepting students and was suspended. A new female head teacher came. A new head teacher was young and good-tempered. He encouraged my painting all the time. I participated in the school and city competitions, and won the 3rd place in the city. I felt much better in the class and made some good friends. When the seats were changed for the first time, I was unexpectedly arranged to sit at the same table with Max. Almost everyone in the class knew that I had a crush on him before. Everyone wanted to see if we would interact. Unfortunately, they were disappointed. We hardly interacted. Until the 3rd year of high school. Something happened. Max's police father died in the line of duty. The whole county knew about this. A reporter who was curious came to the school to interview Max. What did he want to say about his death? Max stood on the stage facing the camera. His face unusually pale. The reporter only wanted to take some touching pictures and gimmicks, and then go back to publicize them. He didn't care about the feelings of Max, a child whose biological father had just passed away. I watched his hands hanging on both sides of his body tremble all the time. I don't know where the courage came from. I grabbed him and ran. And when the reporters didn't react, I pulled him through the encirclement. I ran all the way to the quiet back playground of the school before I stopped. I noticed that we were holding hands tightly together. My face turned red. And I immediately knew that Max would hold my wrist in the next second. His fingertips were very cold, but they spread to my heart. Don't go, Max begged with red eyes. That afternoon, on the quiet playground, I told my story of abandoning my wife and children. 5 days later, our relationship had a subtle change, but there was always a layer of ambiguous window paper between us, and no one broke it. After Max's father's incident, his wish changed to the police academy. I can understand his thoughts. He asked me where I wanted to go to school. I wanted to apply for the animation major of an art academy in Sea City. This is the school I have the best chance of entering. Max didn't say anything after listening, but silently filled in his own choice of school as a police academy in the same city. My heart trembled, and my face was inexplicably hot. The college entrance examination and the art joint examination were very busy. Fortunately, that year, I was successfully admitted to my school. Max also entered the police academy in the same city as me. The training in the police academy is very strict. I was also busy at the beginning of the school year. We didn't have much contact. Suddenly, on my birthday, just after class, I found a figure standing outside the classroom. He was wearing a simple windbreaker jacket, tall and long-legged, which attracted many students passing by. On the road covered with ginkgo leaves, Max confessed to me. He took out the gift he had carefully prepared in advance and said nervously word by word, "Nina, I actually liked you a long time ago. I don't know if I can have someone to spend the rest of my life with you." I looked at him and smiled, then hugged him fiercely. Of course. I agree. Before Max fell in love, I didn't expect that he was actually a love-brained person. Every day, he was very busy with training courses, but he would find a way to report to me and send me messages. If I didn't reply for more than 3 minutes, he would start to send me crying cat-head emoticons. When we kissed for the first time, his whole face was red from face to neck, and he was careful and bright. After that, he changed. He was like a male vixen. I still miss his youthful appearance more. This year, my mother also found her true love, got married, and stepped down. She had a happy smile on her face all day long, and she also showed a little more concern for me. Everything seemed to be going in a good direction. Unfortunately, those things happened. I didn't dare to recall it anymore. My stomach began to roll, and my whole body was slightly cold. Max, who was driving in the front seat, keenly noticed that something was wrong with me and asked, "Is it a bit cold?" As he said that, he reached out and turned up the car heater. "It's okay." I suppressed the moisture in my eyes and replied in a muffled voice. 6 after arriving downstairs of my house and thanking Max, I was about to go upstairs. Behind me, Max suddenly called me. "Nina," he said. "Add your contact information, and you can contact me if you have any questions." He took out his phone and said. I stopped in place stiffly. No, I was the one who broke up at that time. Max didn't believe it at first. He looked for me again and again, waiting downstairs in the snowy night. The last time, I appeared in front of him with a neighbor brother whom I had known since childhood. Max stared at me persistently, his eyes red. I smiled with some contempt. "Don't look at me like that. When your father died, I felt sorry for you and comforted you. Who knew that you really liked me after just comforting me? You are just a beautiful woman. And you actually want to be a policeman. Are you going to make me a widow in the future?" "Yes. I promised you at that time. I really like you a little because you look in line with my aesthetics. But no matter how good you are, there will be a day when I get tired of you. So can you have some shame and stop pestering me?" Every time I said something, Max's face turned paler, until the whole person was shaky. It was because I knew him that I knew that sentence could hurt him more. I used all the hurtful words to say that Max finally gave up. I succeeded. I knew that Max must have been deeply hurt by me, so he never came to see me again in the city. A man as proud as him would never go back to his ex. So what is he doing now? I took a deep breath, turned around, smiled, took out a phone from my pocket, and put it in Max's hand. "Thank you for sending me back. This is the taxi fare. Don't add your contact information. If you are friends, just keep the relationship with the opposite sex. I am also afraid that my boyfriend will misunderstand." I said all this in one breath, without looking up. I probably just left directly. Sure enough, Max said coldly, "Okay. Then I won't disturb you to rest. Goodbye." Hearing his footsteps getting farther and farther away, and the sound of the car engine, I breathed a sigh of relief. There were several red marks on my open palms that I pinched hard. This should be the last time we meet in this life, I thought blankly. A few days later, I received a call from Wendy, who was a childhood friend I had known since junior high school. Wendy called to say that there was a high school reunion on Saturday, which was prepared by a fat guy in our class, who was very popular. I heard that he is now the boss of a company and invited everyone to attend. When I heard that Max, my high school classmate, was going, would he go? Wendy knew about the relationship between Max and me. She said that our police officer Liang was busy with work and probably couldn't go. I was relieved to hear this answer. I had a relationship with Fatty when I was in school. If Max didn't go, I wouldn't have any psychological burden. I had to solve this favor. I nodded and agreed. Then I'll go. The class reunion on Saturday was coming soon. I looked around the room and didn't see Max. So I was relieved. Fatty was very happy to see me. Look. Our cartoonist is here. I said you are good at drawing, and you will definitely achieve something in the future. Now it's true. My sister is also a fan of Nina. Everyone started chatting enthusiastically. I have never been used to such occasions. So I just smiled beside them. They chatted and chatted. And somehow they talked about Max. You guys are the best in our class. I heard that Max was transferred back to be the captain of the police force. He has a bright future. He was righteous when he was in school. I heard that it was Max who reported our first-year class teacher, Ms. Kin. Otherwise, who would have known that she actually accepted bribes in private? So he reported it? We have to thank Max for changing our class teacher. Otherwise, I dare not think how difficult our 3 years of high school life would be. Hearing these words, my hand holding the wine glass was stunned. Although many years have passed, the scars that Mr. Kin caused me cannot be erased. I just didn't expect that the incident then was actually reported by Max. At this time, the private room suddenly became quiet and everyone looked at the door. Speak of the devil. The fat man stood up to greet him. I turned my head suddenly and saw Max walking in. He took off his police uniform at this time. And a simple windbreaker made him look taller and thinner. Didn't he say he wouldn't come? I whispered to Wu Rong beside me. Wendy was also surprised. I heard that he really wasn't coming. Why did he suddenly change his mind? It's okay. You two have been separated for so many years. Just treat each other as ordinary classmates. I think she is right. Everyone has their own lives. And he is so proud that he doesn't hate me. Sure enough, Max greeted everyone freely. But when his eyes swept over me, he didn't linger for too long. Through this party, I was watching the nose and the nose, quietly nestling in the corner like a quail, just focusing on eating and drinking. After the party, everyone left. I staggered out of the hotel, and the night wind outside made me dizzy. Wu Rong also drank a lot and was picked up by her boyfriend. As soon as Wendy left, I fell into the green belt next to the hotel. Dizzy. A steady footstep stopped behind me. Max's voice sounded inferently. You can't drink so much but you still force yourself to drink. Do you want me to take you? No need. I didn't want him to see me in such a mess again. So I buried my head in the bushes in the green belt and replied sullenly. My boyfriend will come to pick you up. Heh. Max seemed to sneer. What? Your boyfriend is in the green belt? I was speechless. Max stood behind me for a while. And then said faintly, you are a very competent boyfriend. He didn't pick you up even when you were so drunk. Nina. Why is your vision getting worse and worse? His tone was quite sarcastic. I immediately retorted, then why doesn't your girlfriend come to pick you up? Max was stunned for a moment. And then gritted his teeth a little. Girlfriend. My girlfriend is waiting for her boyfriend to pick her up. What kind of relationship is this? My mind was a mess and I couldn't think. Before I could figure it out, someone grabbed my collar by the back of my neck. And then I was spinning around. And Max lifted me up and put me in his car. Max didn't drink. He was driving in the front. I was lying on the back seat, covering my mouth tightly. My face flushed. What's wrong with you? Max couldn't help asking. I covered my mouth and replied, I've omitted 200 yuan in the car. Even if my stomach was churning, and I was too drunk to think. I remembered that I had to hold back the 200 yuan I've omitted in the car. You can vomit. I'm not a taxi driver. I won't charge you. Max's voice was a little helpless. Hearing this, I felt relieved and vomited with a wow. A Thai was sent home by Max. After lying on the bed, I confidently ordered, I'm thirsty. I want to drink water. Max responded and got me some water. He looked at me and asked, do you have any hangover medicine at home? I'll give you some. I covered my forehead, which was about to split with pain, and replied in a daze, medicine? What medicine? Max saw that I probably couldn't remember it now, so I had to find it myself. I heard the sound of I see you opening the drawer with his back to me. And suddenly I thought of something in my mind. And the alarm bells rang. Wait. Medicine. No, I can't let him see it. Don't look for it. I don't want to take it. I shouted. And rolled off the bed in a hurry. And fell to the ground. Max quickly closed the drawer and turned back to help me back. I don't want to take medicine. I pulled him and shook my head desperately. Max patted my back like coaxing a child and said, "Okay. I won't take it." I gradually fell asleep with his comfort. 9 When I woke up the next day, the room was empty. If it weren't for the warm honey water at the bedside, I would have suspected that my memory of last night was disordered. It seems that Max did send me back last night. I only remember that I vomited all over his car. Max has mysophobia, so he must be very angry. Thinking of his face washing the car with a broken face, I am still a little happy. Thinking about how he turned from a pure puppy to a deep brother now, and I also contributed to it. I couldn't help but sigh. After this class reunion, everyone really went their own way. I also have to do what I want to do. As I was thinking, there was a knock on the door. I opened it and saw that it was Max. "You." Before I could ask, Max walked into the house very naturally. "After a hangover, you should drink some stomach-nourishing porridge. You must eat breakfast. Otherwise it will be bad for your body." He put the breakfast he bought on the dining table while instructing, and all his movements were smooth and flowing. Seeing his familiar look, I was incredible. "Come to eat." Max scolded me. I sat down with mixed feelings, drank a few mouthfuls of porridge, and finally couldn't help looking up and asking, "Max, we have broken up for 3 years." I emphasized, "Aren't you worried that your current girlfriend will misunderstand you now?" Max also emphasized, "I don't have a current girlfriend. Only you are an ex." I choked. "I don't have a girlfriend." So what his teammates said before. Max seemed to know what I was thinking and explained, "In the team, they will inquire about my private life or introduce me to someone. In order to avoid trouble, they use you as a shield." I suddenly felt that it was not me who was sick, but Max. When the atmosphere was silent, Max suddenly said, "What's the matter with those medicines?" 10 What medicine? I asked, and then realized what he was talking about. I looked at the drawer, and there were indeed signs of being opened. It seems that he saw it after all. I avoided answering and just said, "Who told you to mess with my things?" Max said to himself, "I have seen those drug names. The victim of a case I handled before was also taking these drugs every day. It is used to treat depression. Right?" He looked up at me. I found that his eyes had turned red without knowing when. "Nina, how dare you ruin yourself like this?" Max asked word by word with red eyes and gritted teeth. "What happened in these years? Why did you get sick? Tell me. We can solve it together." He almost pleaded. "What does it have to do with you?" I lowered my eyes inferently. "It's just a little depression. People like us who are engaged in art have some problems. It's normal." "Do the police still care about other people's private affairs?" Max turned his head to the side, as if he was holding back something. "If you are fine, leave. Thank you for the porridge. We are not even ordinary friends now. You don't have to care about me so much." I directly ordered him to leave. Max was silent for a while, then stood up. "If you don't want to talk now, you don't have to. I'll come back." After he left, I covered my head, which suddenly hurt, and swallowed a painkiller. Everything was going according to my plan and was about to end. Who knew that the variable Max would appear? Which made my heart confused again. I turned on my phone and 2 messages popped up. A message from a person named A. "Enough evidence has been collected, and we can close the net." I replied, okay. On the other side was a message from my comics editor Amy. Me, BASI. Your new comic is so good. It has passed the review and can be put on the shelves. What do you want to name the new comic? I thought about it and typed 2 words, Breaking the Cocoon. Breaking the Cocoon and Reborn. 11. A cartoonist who is a little famous on the internet, Wu N, has published a new comic called Breaking the Cocoon. It tells the story of a girl who encounters darkness while growing up, is persecuted, struggles in the quagmire, and breaks the cocoon and reborn. This comic caused a sensation on the internet in less than half a month and became a hot search. It was not because of how wonderful the plot was or how amazing the drawings were, but because the more readers read, the more they felt that the descriptions of the villains in the story matched the identities of the president of a certain chamber of commerce and the president of a certain group in reality. In the story, the heroine was sent to the bed of the vice president of a certain chamber of commerce by her stepfather for profit. Afterwards, he teamed up with the heroine's biological mother to eliminate the evidence and imprison the heroine. Moreover, this stepfather and the vice president of the Chamber of Commerce conspired to buy a villa and built his own paradise on it. In addition to the heroine, he also persecuted other innocent girls and committed countless crimes. The characters in it actually match the business elites, who often appear in financial newspapers in reality. This is terrible. Is this a realistic description? Readers were terrified when they thought about it carefully. Everyone's enthusiasm for eating melons was ignited, and they analyzed it in detail. For a time, the popularity remained high. I looked at the speculations of netizens and the comments in the background, and everything developed as I expected. I drew this comic, and it also depicts my real experience. When my stepfather Mark first married my mother, I only knew that he was a manager of a company. He was over 40 years old, and still handsome, and he looked gentle and approachable. In fact, he had no real power, just a pimp, working under the vice president of the Chamber of Commerce, collecting all kinds of girls who suited their tastes for persecution. Those girls were kept on that closed mountain, used as resources to trade, to win people's hearts, and to gather power for the Chamber of Commerce. More than 4 years ago, when I had been dating Max for more than half a year, my mother asked me to go to the company to deliver something to my stepfather. In his office, I happened to see him and the vice president of the Chamber of Commerce talking about something. The man was in his 50s. When he saw me, his sticky eyes lingered on me, which made me feel uncomfortable. I put down the documents and left in a hurry. 2 months later, when I went home for the winter vacation, Mark smiled kindly and said that my mother had made a big meal for me. I was so happy about my mother's concern for me that I didn't notice the strange looks of the two of them. I passed out after eating a few bites. Later, I woke up in the vice president's bed. 12. I almost collapsed, and I was going to call the police and arrest the vice president. But who knew? He laughed and said I was overestimating myself. They wanted to lock me up until all the traces on my body disappeared and no evidence could be found. I tried to escape and call the police several times, but they held me down. At this time, Mark finally revealed his true colors. He said that it was an honor for me to be favored by others, and I just regarded it as a contribution to the family. I resisted. So he grabbed my hair, threw me against the wall, and said viciously, "You little girl. Do you really think you can stir up trouble? Go out and say it now. Call the police, and see who believes you. I heard that you have a boyfriend in school, Max, who is from the police academy, right? You don't think he can help you, do you? He is a kid without a father in power. I have 100 ways to make him unable to be a policeman in the future. Don't overestimate your abilities." I looked at my mother with the only hope bleeding from the corner of my mouth. But my mother turned her head and ignored me. I knocked on the door and begged her with tears. "Mom, please, please let me out. Okay?" My mother could only sigh outside the door at this time. "I know you are wronged. Your Uncle Mark has no choice. He depends on the vice president for his livelihood. And he just happened to like you. Nina. You know how sad Mom has been these years. I finally met your Uncle Mark. Who is so kind to us. Just for me. Can you bear it this time? 13. My heart was completely cold. By the time I was released, more than 20 days had passed. Just as they said. I wanted to report the case. But there was no trace on my body. No evidence. When I asked my mother and stepfather, they all said in a good parental manner that I had paranoia and would have seizures from time to time. I wanted to use the media to expand the matter. But all the anonymous submissions were suppressed. Their power is more terrible than I thought. And from the occasional proud words of Mark, I learned that I was not the only one. In unknown places, there are many girls like me who have been persecuted and become their tools for making money. But I can't do anything. Under this high pressure, I broke up with Max. First because I didn't want to implicate him. And secondly because I didn't want to be involved in the incident. My mental state was on the verge of collapse. And I was afraid that someone would see through me. With Max's personality, he would definitely fight hard. But it would be like hitting a rock with an egg. So I have been lying dormant for the past few years, pretending to my stepfather that I had accepted my fate. In fact, I have been collecting evidence privately, and I found that there is an industry chain behind this. I is my ally. She is a female hacker. She helps me collect definite evidence of the crime through the internet and intrusion monitoring. And I am responsible for the layout. I know that with the power of those people, even if I collect evidence, I am afraid that I will be suppressed before I stir up any waves. The comics I have written in the past few years have also accumulated my popularity. What I want is to use the power of public opinion to make this matter so interesting that the more people see it, the more it cannot be suppressed easily. And my evidence has also worked. 14. As I thought. The heat is getting higher and higher. I want to carry out the work. Before I could throw out the evidence, I received a call from my mother. Nina. Are you crazy? Are you going to ruin everyone? My mother said sharply. You drew that comic. Delete it quickly. Why? I asked. Because I am your mother. I laughed when I heard this answer. You are my mother. My father left us when I was 7 years old. You took out your anger on me all day long, saying that it was because I was a girl that my father could leave at any time. If it was a boy, he would not be willing to let me wash the dishes and cook by myself at a young age. You even sent your daughter to the bed of an old man for your so-called happiness and joined others to hurt me. Have you ever cared about my feelings for a minute? You always think about yourself. I laughed and shed tears. So this is called mother. Being a mother is actually like this. My mother was silent. And she started to play the emotional card. Nina. I was sorry for you before. But what good is it for you to expose the matter? It's not good for your reputation. How can you get married in the future? I really care about you. I don't care. I said. They are the ones who should be afraid. And your old ideas of the King dynasty should be buried with the feudal society. After that, I hung up the phone. I took the USB doctor containing the evidence and prepared to go to the police station. I was not trying to save myself, but a group of girls. Not long after I walked out of the house, I felt a sudden pain in the back of my neck. 15. When I opened my eyes again, I was tied up in a remote abandoned factory. This factory was owned by Mark's company. So whoever tied me up was Mark in front of me, playing with the USB drive he had searched for me. Laughing. This thing. You little bitch. I didn't expect you to be so good at hiding. You actually have the ability to collect so many things. I wanted to treat you as my daughter. But you didn't appreciate it. Now I, as your stepfather, will teach you a lesson on behalf of your biological father. As he said that, 2 of his men came up and kicked me in the stomach. Someone pulled my hair up and slammed me to the ground. I instantly felt a hot stream flowing out of my nose and a fishy sweetness in my mouth. Mark laughed wildly and threw the USB dock directly into the brazier in front of him. How about it? How does it feel to spend so much effort and fail at the last hurdle? Laughing B. Ha 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 long moreover. How can you be sure that I only have one person? Go online and check it out now. Mark's face turned pale when I said this. He quickly took out his phone and pinned the first post on the top. The scandal was confirmed. It has now spread all over the internet. Now the procuratority and the police have gone to arrest the vice president. I looked at Mark's collapsed look and couldn't help laughing. I have always been me in the open and day in the dark. Because of her hacker identity. Show up. But if something happens to me, I will stand in the open for me. I told her before that if I don't respond for more than 5 minutes, I will be in danger. I will report the case for me and expose all the evidence. I will kill you. Mark's eyes were red. And he picked up the wood on the ground. I closed my eyes. And the expected pain did not come. A warm body lifted me up. I opened my eyes and Max's face came into my eyes. His teammates had quickly surrounded and subdued Mark. Are you okay? I was surprised by his appearance. Max didn't say anything, but just held me tightly in his arms. I felt a wetness. You cried? I asked. Drops of tears fell on my shoulders. And I was so sorry for you. I'm sorry. It was incoherent. As if I would only repeat this. I should have thought it was wrong when we broke up. I was a fool. I'm sorry for letting you fight for so many years. I'm sorry. Anzin was almost suffocated by the pain and hated herself at this moment. If you insist a little longer, you may find clues. I will secretly go to the police academy gate to see him in the next 2 years. Seeing him win awards. Being commended. And inheriting his father's police number to become a police officer in Beijing. Max thought he could protect Nina for the rest of his life. But he didn't expect that he was the one being protected. 16 This case caused a sensation in the whole society. The police rescued dozens of girls in that secret villa. The youngest of whom was only in his teens. Marking the vice president of the Chamber of Commerce not only did these things, but also committed other crimes. Enough to be sentenced to life imprisonment. When the verdict came out, I was lying on the bed in the hospital recovering from my injuries. Eating the orange peeled by Max for me. Not only was it recovering from my injuries, but it was also treating my insomnia and depression. With Max's company, I was indeed getting better day by day. My mother also came to meet Weiss during this period. I didn't see her. I looked at her from a distance. She seemed to have aged 10 years overnight, and was extremely haggard. Her actions were criticized by people. And she was despised and excluded by relatives and friends. She participated in the matter of knocking me unconscious and imprisoning me. And she would also be punished. But this is what she deserved. Someone sent you a postcard. Max wiped my hands, and took out an envelope for me. When I opened it, there was only one line of words written on it. From now on, you will really be reborn. Oh, see you in the world. The signature was A. I looked out the window. And at this moment a green butterfly just fluttered its wings and flew by. From now on, I will start my new life. Max Extra. Every time Max heard Nina say that she was the first to like him, he couldn't help but laugh. In fact, he loved Nina much more than he thought. When he entered the school in the 1st grade, he noticed a petite girl who was carrying luggage bigger than 2 of his own. She came to register alone without her parents. He was surprised at the time. She had strong arm strength. Then, her eyes were so beautiful and clear. When she looked at you, she felt her heart softened. So when they were assigned to the same class and Nina was peeking at him, Max felt it at the first time. He had some subtle joy in his heart. And sometimes he deliberately tilted his head a little to let the sunlight hit his side face. Max's face was calm. But his heart was already full of waves. I heard that Nina was drawing himself. But it was torn by that teacher Kin. After school, Max secretly picked up the fragments and carefully put them together. The painting was really beautiful. He wanted to get close to Nina, at least as a friend. But Nina kept hiding from him. And he knew why. And he didn't want to make things difficult for her. His father died in the line of duty. And Max felt that the whole sky had fallen. But when those people surrounded him, his mind was blank. It was Nina who pulled him out. Later, Max changed his ideal to the police academy. And Nina said she supported him. Nina has always supported his ideal. So the words she said when they broke up were also to stimulate him. He should have thought of it earlier. When they just broke up, Max put himself into training all day, as if he could numb himself. But in his spare time, he couldn't help but secretly inquire about Nina's news. I heard that Nina had been absent from class for a long time. But I didn't know why. I heard that she graduated. And I heard that she became a cartoonist. Max kept asking about her news. And he was both excited and afraid. He was afraid that he would collapse if he heard that Nina got married and had a second child. Max solved a case in Beijing City, and did a great job. His boss wanted him to stay there for development. At this time, he learned from his high school classmate Fatty that Nina seemed to be staying in City Phi. Max applied for a transfer. And his boss approved it even though he didn't understand. Maybe it would fail. Maybe there would be no result. But Max always had a little expectation in his heart. They were all in the same city. If they were lucky, maybe one afternoon, on a street corner, they would meet again. Fortunately, God favored him.